Yeah, I find this mind-boggling. I just don't understand how that's possible that we just stopped making films whenever we can, because filmmaking has really become so cheap that it doesn't cost anything anymore. I mean, you need to pay people. One of the reasons we put 5,050 is so that if you want to pay your people, you can. You don't have an excuse not to pay your crew, because all you really need is a sound person, camera person. You can even do everything by yourself, you know. But for the rest, filmmaking is free. It's so simple. And all these cameras, they cost nothing right now. They cost electricity, that's it. But why don't we use this more?
So, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see you all out here. Thanks for coming so numerously. Let me introduce myself, if I may. My name is Emil Schlesser. I'm a filmmaker too, and I have a podcast called 35M Elevator Pitch, and it's about filmmaking. Some of our guests today have already been guests in our podcast. And I'm going to introduce you guys to all of the filmmakers here. And let's start with Roxane Pégué on my right. Your quickie was called Table 12, right? Then we have Julie Schröll, which is Den Date. Then we have Eileen Byrne with Kammerspiel. And number 4 is Ganael Dumreicher with the film Mondsucht. And over here we have the guy who invented the entire thing. It's Govinda van Malle.
But I invented it together with Adolf Erasal, by the way. So
yeah, true. So I was thinking of how should we open this thing, and something popped into my mind that I read not too long ago in a book called Atomic Habits. I can really recommend this book. It's something that you can always see around Christmas. I think it's like heaps of books at Ernster. It's a really good book, and they have a passage there where they talk about quality versus quantity. And apparently there was, I don't know when it happened, but it was at the University of Florida, there was a professor who made this test, who had this film photography class split into 2 groups, where one was all about quantity. So the photographers there, the students there, had only one job, which is get as many pictures as humanly possible, and they would solely be graded upon the number of work they produced. And then the second group was all about quality. So their only goal was to, by the end of the semester, hand in one final photo, and that had to be really good. So they had all the time reflecting and reading theory and, whatnot, to come up with the best concept for a good picture. And now, who would you think had the best pictures in the end? Which group would be the one who had the better pictures?
Quantity.
Yeah, it was quantity. When I read this, it blew my mind, because I always thought, there's something to be said about, reflecting on something and taking your time to get shit right and really nail it, and that's, in the end, it's bullshit, because it's really about getting the 10,000 hours in to master the craft. And I could see this concept here in the Quickies project very much, and I made a quickie as well in the first season. Quickie number 1, it was called Vis-a-Vis, and I know for sure I wouldn't have made that film, and I wouldn't even had the idea, because I really sat down and I thought hard about which story I would tell. And if it weren't for Govinda and Adi and the Quickies project, I would never have made this film. And so I see the value of a project like this. So I want to hand it to you now, Govi. What made you come up with this idea? What was the initial spark to come up with a project like this?
Well, it's a COVID project, actually, because during COVID I started making films at home, because I didn't have any, like most people, I didn't have much to do, so I just started making a film with what I had, which was my family and the time and my house. And I made basically children's films, like home movies, and I realized that it was exactly the same as when I was making films when I first started out, when I was like 15, 12 actually. And it was a big surprise, because I thought that I just grew older and I changed, and that was so far in the past that it didn't exist anymore, that kind of feeling. And the other thing that surprised me is that I don't have this feeling when I make a film with proper funding, which is weird, because that's why I started making films, because I had fun making films, and it was a real pleasure, and it was experimenting, and it was just playing. And what you want to do when you become a professional filmmaker is do the same thing but with a lot of money. And so I asked myself, like, why is that? Like, why did it suddenly change so much once I have a lot of money? And became clear to me that a little bit what you say is with the quantity and quality things. Like, the more time you spend on something and the more money is involved, the more pressure you put on yourself to make it right. In the end, that doesn't necessarily mean it's better. So you have to preserve the playfulness that you have when you make like loads of pictures, for example, and preserve that when you make a big film. Because my plan is still to make films with money and to play with all the big toys, but I want to play with those toys the same way that I played when I was a teenager or when I was during COVID making these films. So when COVID finished, I met Adi on a terrace somewhere. He was one of the first filmmakers that I met, and he told me the same thing. He had the same experience, and we said, "Oh, let's just ask some other filmmakers and do it again." You know, because COVID wasn't finished, so we still had a lot of time ahead of ourselves. With nothing to do. There was no industry at that time, so everything was calmed down, quieted down. So we just asked the Film Fund for a little bit of money, and we asked a couple of friends. It was 18 filmmakers it was a bit more, but we had enough money for 18 filmmakers, and so we made these kind of films in a very quick mode, in the same way that we did films during COVID at home. So that's the initial idea. And what was surprising to me too is how many people understood immediately what I wanted to do. And all these people who understood it were filmmakers. None of the producer friends of mine understood what I was talking about. They thought I was insane to even propose this. And they said, in Luxembourg, give people only, it was 2020 euros. They all said, like, what? Luxembourg filmmakers are so spoiled. They make films with 120,000 euro. Why would they take 2,220? Or they can get money for Carte Blanche, which is 30,000 euro. Why would they do this? And they all wanted to do it. Like, we didn't even make a huge, there was no huge communication. It was just like we sent an email to, I think, to the Lars, probably. I think that's what we did. And we had 22 filmmakers who immediately wanted to do it. And then on this season, it was triple, almost, the number of people who wanted to do a quickie. So there's a demand for it somehow, strangely.
Would you like to repeat the rules? What, in effect, was the rules of the game for this?
Yeah, so the rules is you get a little bit of money, and then you go off and make your film, and and you come back and you give us the film, and that's it.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So there's no schnick-schnack around it. Like, you don't have to write a dossier. You don't have to convince anyone. You have to just, I mean, you do have to send in something, because we have to make some kind of selection. So basically, we want you to come up with an idea, and then hand it in on, like, one can be, I don't know what it was 1 page or something, and also your motivation why you want to do this. And then we have a jury of 4 people, I think, who then selected these 60 projects or so that we got, and chose 12. And these 12, they got this little bit of money, which is this year it was 5,050 euro. Last the season it was 2020. And then you basically just hand in a film of up to 10 minutes that's edited, but you produce it yourself. So you decide how you spend the money. There's a couple of more rules, like you're not allowed to spend more than 1,500 on directing, which is yourself. So you cannot take the whole budget in your own pocket. That's the limit. And I don't know, I didn't look into the budgets of all the films yet, so I don't know what filmmakers did, but most filmmakers probably didn't take this money for themselves.
So you had to hand in a budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you hand in a budget because the Film Fund wants to have like all the bills, obviously, for very clear reasons, understandable reasons. Yeah, and then you get we get the film, and we give it to a color grader if the DOP doesn't grade it themselves, and then to a mixer, sound editor, and that's it. And then we finish the film. So that is paid by us. And
you said you had how many submissions this time around?
I don't know. I think there were like 45 filmmakers that handed in 60 projects, something like, or 50 filmmakers that handed in.
Insane. I didn't know there were so many people in Luxembourg wanting to make films.
Yeah.
What were the criteria then to take this final decision of who the 12 winners would be?
Yeah, that was very difficult because there were just so many good filmmakers in there, and we didn't want to go just with the ones that were the most experienced. We wanted to have a mixture of filmmakers that are experienced, and then some who were not complete beginners, even though we were open to that as well. But it ended up being a mixture of people who are very experienced and some who had maybe done one short film. with no money. So some of them had never done something for 5,000 but less, and some had made films for 3 million or 4 million and then went back to 5.
Someone's laughing over here.
Yeah. But that's a very interesting combination because it's a completely different setup. Like for the experienced one, it's like a step down. You're not supposed to go back from like if once you make a feature film, you're not supposed to make short films anymore. That's supposed to, and definitely not for a little bit of money. But the thing is, you're so experienced at that point that you're liable to do something really good with 5,000 euro because you just know how to use the money, and it frees you again. So the idea was in the beginning to have a lot of filmmakers who are experienced so that they kind of free themselves again and make something fresh like they used to. And then at the same time, we wanted to have young filmmakers come in and also profit from this community and this vibe and everything, and then have a mixture of both.
Yeah, but that was a hard decision to take.
It was so hard. I mean, so many of my friends were so upset with me because they didn't get to do a film for 5,000 euro.
Did it give you a new perspective on being
rejection?
Rejection,
yes.
rejection.
Totally. I mean, I'm like every filmmaker. I'm kind of having learning. I had to go through a learning process with rejection myself. Like it's really hard to get rejected all the time. That's what filmmaking is about: is being rejected all the time. It's
the standard.
Yeah, and I'm complaining as a director. I don't know what it's like for an actor to get this constantly. But the rejection process to be on the other side on a commission, that's really interesting because you have this idea that they when you get rejected that they just don't know, they don't read my project the right way, and like they didn't understand what I was trying to do, and I just didn't write it the way. But sometimes there's just too many projects and you have to reject some, and it doesn't mean that your project is not good enough. It really doesn't mean that at all. It's just there's so many films and some people don't get the money, but maybe they get it next time. So I learned from that to not take it hard at all anymore if my films get rejected at a commission somewhere. And it seems so obvious, but you have to sit in the commission and say no to projects and see how hard it is to say no to projects sometimes to learn this.
I was rejected, by the way. I submitted something and they didn't take me. And then I saw they took some other filmmakers who had one in the first season and they come back and it's like miserable for weeks. But here we have the lucky 4. Okay, but what I would like to know is we're going to go through each and every one of you, and I would like you to pitch your film just very quickly to explain why you made this and not something else, without spoiling too much, because obviously I don't think anybody has seen the films yet. And then what would be interesting for us, I think, is just to, since we're talking about money, how did you spend your money and why? And was it enough? Or could you have made it with even less? Yeah. Let's start with Ganael, yes.
So it's a film about 2 Luxembourgish astronauts who are coming to an asteroid, and they are claiming the asteroid to be Luxembourgish territory. And they are part of the LSA, the Luxembourgish Space Agency. And at one moment this asteroid wakes up and they start a discussion about how it is not okay because the asteroid doesn't feel like being part of Luxembourgish territory, but they are claiming it. And the background of this film is that Luxembourg is indeed the second country in the world to have implemented laws on space regulation, which is really, really interesting and crazy. And I always wanted to make a film about this topic. And I also always wanted to make a film where people are living or moving on the body of another person. And so this film combines these two things where suddenly people are walking and living in the head of this person and then coming out. And yes, and it was really interesting to do this film because in the preparation process, I also met people from the UN who are specialized on space sustainability. Yes, this exists, and who are working in the UN. And they said that actually the UN is really not prepared of what will come to us in 50, 60 years when space resources will be very relevant and omnipresent in our society. But our film, which I did with Xavier, who is also sitting over there, who was the DOP, but also heavily involved as a physician in the brainstorming process, is kind of a surreal take and funny take on it from Le Petit Prince, but combined with this kind of laws from Luxembourgish regulation, where we really also read a little bit into the law text, met with specialists, and then we combined these like super crazy, surreal ideas with this really real existing laws of craziness.
Sounds like you could totally do this with 5,000 euros. Sounds so cheap.
It was a challenge, but I think we had fun, no? Yes.
So how did you spend your money? Because we're curious.
So it started with a small idea, and then in the end we were a very, very small crew. We shot everything in the studio, which was not really a studio. It was a small room, and we kind of it had a little bit of lights in there, but then we made it. We put some more lights in there, but the space was really small. And so we had to improvise a lot, and in the end, I think we were 6 people, and we were working for 7 people. We were working for a lot of time. And the more and more this process started, we all decided that we all going to put all of our collective in there. And so we were for 2 months, I think, preparing the set design with Justin, and then with Xavier together, because we had this very small space, but we had to make it endless, because space is endless. So we had to find a language for how to make the camera move, like how to do this camera angle. So, for example, we made the surface of the asteroid, but it could only be as big as this stage. So it was like, or a little bit more. So it was like 20 square meters. But it had to look like it would be a whole planet. So we were always shooting from down. So we then got a lot of dust and earth. This was like more the transportation costs, because and then we brought it all there. Then we built the inside of a body with like foam. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it was like a whole room which we built with this foam. So most of the money which we spent was really spent for this kind of set design things, and with all the rest there was not enough anymore. But this is also the idea of the Quickie, that you get really creative with this kind of limitations that you have. We were really, really limited, but we invented kind of our own small camera language out of it, and then with Justin, who can't be here, but then we also invented kind of all these workarounds to build the set, and then make the set, make the walls smaller, so that we have 3 different rooms in one. It looks like 3 different rooms, but actually what we did is that we always put them together, or we curved the walls made out of this foam and so on. So it was fun.
You even built a giant nose. It took me a while to realize.
Yes, we built a giant nose. Yes,
you're gonna see. It's terrific.
Yes. It's really this big a nose, because when you live inside of a person, you have to find a way out, and there's the ear or there's the nose. I mean, there are also other ways, but they are the most most aesthetic for a film, let's say. And so the person lives inside, and then she finds a door in the brain, and then she goes out and comes out of the nose. Yes, and therefore we had to build the nose. Yes, it totally makes sense. Not when I pitched it to a lot of people, but it made sense in the end.
Well, it convinced the jury. So shall we go on to Eileen? Okay. What was your experience? And what's your film about?
Sollst du mal da Putsche, Mann? Teuer se Bankgeber voller Ke Kanner Geburtstag.
Ich hatte keine Zeit für ein Bauhaus. Die du reise nicht. Lief mal schon Erfahrung gemacht.
Tada!
Wer ist du?
Ein Fee. Gesehen nicht.
Wer hatte gesagt, unumfallig Kostümer?
Ja, Tatsache, da kann den das nicht. Ich bin das für dich. Und das für dich.
Ich die so etwas nicht tun.
Da kannst du eben an den Bing und den Schnitt.
Das ist vielleicht wirklich gut, einfach dran zu proben.
So the film is about 3 single moms in Luxembourg, and the government has changed last Sunday, and now it's a right-wing, quite extremist party that took over, And yeah, so these 3 single moms don't know how they will be able to survive under this new government. One is an artist, one is a infirmière, a nurse, and the third one, I don't remember. But okay, so these 3 women don't see any way out, and they decide to rob a bank, which is kind of easy, maybe in Luxembourg, one could think. And
don't do this at home, kids.
And they meet up on a playground because they all have little children, and you know, if you want to rob a bank, you have to have a really good plan. And where else could you meet than on a playground where your children can play while you plan your coup? Yeah, so that's basically the story. And actually, the idea came from Dominic. I don't know how he came up with it.
It was basically inspired by a lot of stories I heard from friends living in Luxembourg telling me their experiences, how the housing situation is very, very difficult, and how you basically, if you don't inherit, that it could be hard to live your life here and to keep your apartment and to support or to finance your kids and everything. And that was basically the beginning of the idea.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's something that we as artists, we know what we're talking about. And we asked 3 actresses, friends of ours, who all have children,
who have robbed banks,
who know exactly what to do, who know every playground in Luxembourg. And most of us don't live in Luxembourg because we could never pay your rent here. So yeah, that was the basic idea, and that was why I really loved the idea and really wanted to do it, because it's a comedy, but it's on the at the same time it's very real.
And that totally ties into the theme of the series. You know, the lack of money. Basically, it all comes down to what do you do when you don't have enough money. So what did you do with your money? How did you spend it?
So we actually spent a lot just paying the team and the actors, because we thought, especially if you've done many short films and maybe one feature film, the thing about the short films, why it's always so difficult, is also because you always have to beg people, would you do this for free for me, please, please, please? And I've done this for years during my studies. We never had money to pay anybody on my film sets. We just thought, because we had Hélène Vallon who took over the production side, and we just decided that everybody got 250 euros so that, it's still not a lot, it's like pocket money, but still it doesn't feel like you're doing everything for free. And then we had a lot of props and costumes that we needed to buy, and we both bought most of it secondhand. But still, the money was gone very quickly.
How would you say it fueled your creativity? Because you just released your first feature film. And
I was actually laughing because I was wondering who it was earlier on when he said, and people with 3 million who come back. And I was like, oh, that's funny. Who does that? Who is it? And then you said it. And I remembered.
You didn't realize. But you kind of made this back to back somehow, if I'm not mistaken,
I was
right?
in post-production of my feature film.
How did that feel? I mean,
it ended in a burnout.
So it put you into a burnout? Or did you?
Not really, but it felt like, it was a bit crazy to do it.
Would you say that there's a value in doing something cheap and quick and dirty compared to, you've been working for years on Marianengrab, on your feature.
Yeah, so I think that's basically it. That you get back to the feeling why you actually started out making films, because you have an idea and you're like, you're so excited about it and you really want to do it. But if you do a feature film, it's like, cool, let's do this, and then maybe in 5 or 6 years we'll have a film. That's great. And you have to be really patient, and I'm not a patient person, and this felt like these quickies are like you can just actually get up in the morning and actually work on it, and you will have a result in a month or 2, and that it's just so freeing, and you just get gratifying. That's the word. Yeah, it's gratifying. you actually get a result. And that is something, I mean, I think everybody in the room knows we cannot get up in the morning like a painter and just say, today I will create a painting. Today I will direct, today I will act. It's not possible. We rely on so many people, so much money to actually do something. And this is just helping to find this feeling and this idea, this flame back in us. And it's great.
Yeah. So, shall we move on to the date?
Okay.
So, bis man dass der neue Freund, das du willst Fleisch mit da.
Ma ja, natürlich.
Ich hoffe, ne? Ja, kannst du von Schiff auf mich fahren, Mama? Die Kurve ganz schwer. Mama, kannst du mich...
Nee.
Ich geh Bocken mehr. Mama wart, wo nicht gelieft. Weißt du, in der Glodot stinkt sowieso alles in der Prison. Wann gibt da wart?
So what's the date about?
So the date, so it's the story about a mother and her son. This mother actually has a date, and the date is ruined by the son, who is being released from prison. And the mother has to pick up the son. Yes, so that's the story, and the son is here already. The mother will be there soon. Pascal.
Loved your performance, by the way. It was great.
And so the story is actually based on a real story. Or the characters are not actors; they are real people, and it's a real mom and her real son. And the story is based on their life. It's a fiction. It's not a documentary. So it's they play actually their role. Yeah, it was a really fun project, and that's something I'm really interested in, is to mix like the reality in the fiction. And so there's something above the film, because you have the people and they experience the story or their life differently. So it's all this reflection and all this relation also, that the people like Daniel and Pascal, like working together, made their relation, it affected their relation a lot. And so you have this whole, like, let's say, social dimension of filmmaking that I really like.
How did the idea come to you?
Yeah, so for me it was, I'm actually working on a bigger project, like a more complicated, long project about the theme of prison and families around prison. So this was a really great opportunity for me to, great.
We got beer!
Cool, okay.
We'll have a little commercial break.
Yeah, after the break.
So that's also in what we just talked about. Making films takes so much time and so much energy, and so psychologically
draining.
Can be very difficult because it takes years, and so making a quickie is like really refreshing in this process. And for my quickie especially, it was also an experiment. Can something work? How does it work on a short film? And how can you expose this or
expand it to a bigger scale?
Expand it to a bigger scale. Does it work? Or especially working like with non-professional actors, what does it mean? It works maybe on the short context, but it's of course very different if you do it on 90 minutes or things like this. So it's also a super cool format to experience new things, and if it doesn't work, well, it's not so such a big problem.
Exactly, it's not that much at stake.
Yeah, and it's also something that is missing in I wouldn't say in Luxembourg, in the filmmaking world in Luxembourg, but as we have so traditional steps, I think in other countries it's different, because most of people don't have money to do their films, so they do a lot of these short films or experiences or experiments. And here we are in this structure where you go through one short film of 120,000, then you do one or two of those, and then you do a long feature. I mean, it's so much also, well, it's great that you have the possibilities to do this, but in the same time, it's also super narrowing your mind. And from my personal experience and how I see, I have the feeling I want to do 20 more short films, maybe I do a feature film in between, but I think it always stays a really good format to like experience new things and becoming good in something. Because also it's like a school, you know, you can go, you can test some things and then you see, okay, this works, this doesn't, or this is for me and this is not for me. Maybe it works, but it's something, okay, I don't want to spend 7 years working in this kind of way, you know. So I think it's really important to do this, and the quickies give you the opportunity. So for me, it was a really cool experience, and yeah.
So how did you spend your 5,050 euros?
I would say, as it is very documentary, like realistic, there's no music in the film, so it was production-wise cheap. We rented a bus from Emil Weber. I think.
I was wondering how you made the bus do what you wanted to do.
Expense, thanks to Joshua. So actually, yeah, I think that's also something about filmmaking. For me, it was really important to pay everyone the same amount. So everyone in the crew got the same money, and that's basically how we spent money. Because that's also something in filmmaking. It's so hierarchical. And you have all, you know, the different positions. And so for me, it was clear that everyone gets the same. And basically, that's how we spent the money. Yeah.
Good, thank you. So shall we move on to Roxane Perguet and her table 12?
Yes.
Il venait souvent y boire son café, lire son livre ou juste observer les gens. Mais après un temps, il trouvait que ça serait chouette de se faire des amis. Et il a trouvé Tati Jeanne. J'adore Tati Jeanne, elle est trop drôle. C'est chouette d'avoir des amis. Mais papa m'a dit que les amis ça ne suffisait pas, qu'il voulait une copine. Je comprends pas trop pourquoi. Donc, il a organisé des rendez-vous avec d'autres femmes.
So, what is Table 12 about? Give us your best pitch.
My elevator pitch.
Yes, please.
Table 12 is the story about a young expat, a man who just arrived from Germany, France, who comes to live in Grund, in this neighborhood. And so it's a little spoil for the movie after, but the whole movie is shot through one single window, and we see his life through the window through several years. So how he arrives, how he meets people, falls in love, goes on dates, and
the camera doesn't move. It's just one shot, and it's the same shot throughout the entire film.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a cool concept, really. And how did you come up with the idea? What made that come to you?
Basically, I tried to find something to really deconstruct the idea of how we make movies with the whole crew and so many actors, and to just keep it as simple as possible. So that was the main idea, to keep it as simple as possible, to have one location, only a few actors. And I didn't know how exactly. I was brainstorming for a few days until I stumbled upon a TikTok of a woman, and it was just a slideshow of pictures of her, and she was always seated at the same table, on the same chair of a terrace in Paris. And basically she was just saying like, oh, look how I changed through the years while sitting on, I always went back to the same table since I arrived in 2020. And you see her change and how she gains confidence and how her style changed. And I thought that was really interesting to see just that one point of view. You never see her in private. So also in my story, you never see the main character at home or at work. You just see him there. And so how he evolves through the years of the same place. And also because I really loved this neighborhood, I really loved Grund. I used to live there, and just it had something very eerie about it, you know.
How did you, because I'm trying to figure out how you shot this. Did you had actors performing, but you also had non-actors, friends of yours that you just asked to drop by to be in the movie. Did you just let the camera roll all the time and yell some directions out the window, or?
Yes and no. So I yelled a lot.
You're a yeller.
No, so the crew was very small. We had one DP, one gaffer, and one production designer. That's it. We didn't have a sound person. So I did a breakdown beforehand, like every scene that was we had a real script though, a real story that we had to follow. So I did a breakdown beforehand saying, okay, those are all the day scenes that I need. Those are all the night scenes that I need, all the scenes with Jules' character and Oriane's character, all the scenes with friends. I basically told people, so the extras regarding now the financial part got paid in beers and crémant. Some extras were planned, others we just asked on the street, like, hey, do you want to sit there for a second? Which is like random tourists. So basically, that's how we planned the day a little bit. Also, how many script days there were, and how many, so the actors brought their own clothes, so how many times we changed clothes or not. I think if we would have more money, we would have maybe changed Jules' hair or Oriane's hair or bigger, different or prosthetics or like gray hair. I don't know, but we kept it simple on this on that side.
It's just time span of how many years roughly?
I'd say maybe 4. It can be very quick. Like it could be 2 years. Now the kid is actually 3 already, so it could be 4 years. 3-4 years, you know.
That's heavy prosthetics then.
Yeah, very gray hair.
Yeah.
No, it was supposed to be from 0 to 5 years.
And how did you spend your 5,000 euros if it's not only for beers and crémant?
So yeah, it was the rental of the place, of the cafe, with some drinks for the extras, but mostly crew. It was really just like, even if we didn't have much crew, I paid them a bit more, and we had some real actors too, 3-4 actors. And then, yeah, editor. A friend helped me to. I had the concept, I had the story, and she helped me to write it down. So I had a screenwriter. Yeah.
You shot on film?
No.
Did you? Because I fell for it. Okay, you got me. You shot digitally, and you made it look like it's 8mm or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know what Anselm did. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. Okay.
I told him I want this, and he did.
No, I was sure you were shooting on
great.
Super 8 or something.
No, it was his small Canon, digital Canon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, the stuff young people do nowadays.
Yeah, we had no money for film.
So this is your short film number 4, right?
Yes. So basically, also the idea to shoot with less technical aspects as possible is because I knew another short was coming with bigger budget. We already got the funding. I knew I was shooting this summer. And in between that, I was like, okay, let's do something smaller, really smaller.
Is that a good exercise to get ready for, put you in the right mindset?
No.
Just not regular Friday night?
No, because like for Table 12, I was still doing production myself, and it was very stressful to find a date where Anselm was free to shoot, where the main character was free to shoot. He was supposed to be another actor, and then he had a lot at theater going on, so I asked Jules. So it was more stressful sometimes, but it was a fun day. It was really a possibility to have fun again. I'm not saying I don't have fun on my other shoots, but it was more liberating. It was not producers behind my back saying, "Oh, blah, blah, blah." Here it was really like, okay, it's going until 11. What else do we have to shoot? What not? Our friends came to be extras, to hang out a bit with them. So it was really, we felt quite free to do that. Yeah.
No responsibilities.
We had some, but we didn't have to move location. We moved the camera, change the lights.
It's really something that you could actually do. If you wanted to, you could do this every Saturday or so.
You could do it for free, but then you just steal my concept and...
I mean, something comparable.
Yes.
And that's something that I was thinking about a lot, because I had the good privilege of seeing the films beforehand, all of them. And I felt really inspired. I have so much passion now burning in me, because I think, what am I waiting for? I should just, I have a camera which is recording over there and over there. Why am I not grabbing the camera and I go out, if it's only filming myself and coming up with some crazy shit and, telling some stories, to do something, because I'm working on bigger projects right now and they're taking forever. And the last time I was on a set is 4 years ago. By the time I'm going to shoot the thing, then it's going to be 4 to 5 years or so. So my muscles, I have the feeling my muscles are really like crumpled, and I have a lack of training. How is this? I mean, you can be of a different opinion, of course, but I have the feeling that most of us don't really do as much as they could, and we completely lost the childish playfulness and the excitement of just grab the camera and go out. It's beautiful weather. Yeah, come on, brother, let's do something. How we used to, and how that made us fall in love with the medium. And I would wish for myself and all of us to do this more often. But I'm wondering, how is this? How? Because it's such a cliche that we have the technology. You can shoot a film with your phone over a weekend with your friends. It seems to me like nobody really does it.
Well, I'm going to start on this. If you just jump in, but I don't know. I find this really remarkable. Like I just don't understand how that's possible that we just stopped making films whenever we can, because filmmaking has really become so cheap that it doesn't cost anything anymore. I mean, you need to pay people. One of the reasons we put 5,050 is so that if you want to pay your people, you can. You don't have an excuse not to pay your crew, because all you really need is a sound person, camera person. You can even do everything by yourself, you know. So you can really pay people, and we are never ever proposing that you should not pay your people. That's why we give 5,050 euro. But for the rest, filmmaking is free. It's so simple, and all these cameras. I mean, you have 2 cameras. They cost nothing right now. They cost electricity. That's it. But why don't we use this more? I find this mind-boggling. And it's interesting that you talked about TikTok, because I see this happening in social media so much. People have kind of found like a new space where there's no pressure, where there's no money involved, and they're so creative in social media. And I really like, in the beginning, my first instinct was like, oh, that's amateur. Those people they have not studied film, they're not filmmakers. But actually that's what we were doing all the time before. It's just before social media, we made social media videos. And I really get a lot of energy from watching like Instagram reels and things. And I think they're not even aware of what they're creating right now, that there's a new film form creating, and they could push it even further. And we, on the other side, are so stale, and so, like in the film industry, we're so unflexible in how we make films. They could get something from us. They could be more artistic in their approach, maybe. We could be a lot more nimble. I'm just thinking, like, maybe there's an answer in that we should really get a little bit of the spirit of people who do social media videos and kind of liberate ourselves from this pressure of creating big art, because that's what's stopping me. Like, I'm always thinking, is this good enough to warrant this and this much of money? And also, what are people going to think, you know? But I think Eileen has a very good point too.
No. But I have maybe one point. For me, I think it is the fact to get people together, to find a date, it's a lot of energy that you put into a short film. And when I started out, we had mini DV cameras. We didn't have smartphones yet. I remember the first film I did was for film school, and we still had to copy it on a VHS. It was much more complicated. And I also wonder, like, we all have a smartphone. Why don't we go out and film? Well, because you still need, you can't do it on your own. And you can do a TikTok video on your own at home. You just buy, and you don't even have to get out of the house. You buy your round lamp on Amazon, you put it there, and it doesn't cost you a lot of energy. But to make a film, you need actors, you need camera, you need sound, you need, and especially for us who are already in the industry and who fight to actually make a living out of it, and everything is a lot of work, it feels like something that's not so easy to achieve. And I think I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but very often I feel tired before even trying, you know? And then at the end, you're always happy you did it, and you're always proud, and it's always a great thing to do. But it's very difficult for us also to find a date where we could all be there, to make a plan, because some actors had to come later and others had to leave earlier. And we had children who could only be there for like 2 hours, to just organize everything. That's a lot.
That would keep you from doing this on your own without the setting of a quickies project.
I think that's mainly for me, because all the rest is so much fun. But that is actually, it's just not the kind of job where you just get up in the morning and do it, I think.
Roxanne?
Yeah, I really agree with Eileen that it's a lot of energy. And also because we work the whole day to actually trying to pay rent also at the end of the day. And so that energy is going there and not necessarily on smaller projects. But I think also one of the things we need to do those kind of smaller projects is also a deadline, like you have for, and a contrainte, like you have for Lost Weekend, where you know that day we are shooting, that weekend we are shooting, and we have a deadline. If I would tell you, Millie, in 2 weeks I want a short film that's 5 minutes long, maybe you would go home now and already work on it. And it's like just giving each other's and ourselves deadlines to say, okay, every 6 months I bring out a short film, you know, or like a short script only, something.
We could challenge each other and, you know, make bets. And if you don't deliver a short film of 5 minutes by the end of the month, you're gonna have to
But that's the good
pay
thing
me
about the
a
quickies,
six-pack.
because we did have a deadline, and I'm sure that if we didn't have a deadline, our film wouldn't be finished yet.
That's the whole point of the quickies. It's a deadline. The money is pocket money, really. I mean, we all, if you do a big, if you do a well-paid job, you can take 5,000 off of that. I mean, in theory, and do a film. But what you really need is a kick in the butt. You know, and I think we provide this to ourselves. You know, so and the idea is also to do it maybe every year. I mean, ideally, you would have a quickies at the beginning of the year, and then everyone makes one quickie in the first 3 weeks of the year, and then you feel so great for the rest of the year. Because that's what I miss so much, like gratification, like what you were saying before. You know, like it's so tiring to spend 5 years on a film and never get finished. You know, I'm longing for this gratification of having something done, finished. You know,
I also, because we always talk about filmmaking as like something playful, and I don't really see it that way, because, and also to compare it with the social media video, it's something really different. I think it involves so much
hard work.
I mean, even the quickie, it takes so much time and energy. It's not that you do it. Of course, you can do film in a weekend, or if you have to and you have a deadline. But I think that's also something about filmmaking, is that, I mean, you can go out without an idea and shoot something, edit it in the night and see what comes out. I mean, it could work, or you have geniuses that can do it. But basically what I want to say is that it's like filmmaking, you have to have the story beforehand, and you have to make them, like, transform it into the shooting and do the post-production. It's always time-consuming, and yes.
But that's also why it's so gratifying, because it's so hard and there's a lot of time and toil and tears. And that's why you, by the end, if you have the product in your hands and you can show it to an audience, it's like, oh yes, I did it. And I can do it again. It's possible.
Yeah, it's a miracle, because you never know what will happen. You have an idea and then something comes out, and that's so fascinating about it, and so gratifying that there's a result you couldn't even imagine. Well, for me, it's like, for me, it's always completely different.
Every film is a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you always think this is never going to work out, and this is never going to get finished, and then
it's never going to end.
Yeah.
Post-production.
And then there's actually a film. Every time I think it is a miracle.
For me, I think there are some films which need this kind of preparation for years, and it's just not possible to develop or to make this idea without putting so much time into it. For like personally, I have the big luck that I'm with one step still very young, but in the a little bit in the film industry, and with the other foot, I'm in the fine arts world. And I really see this as a luck, because there are some films, for example, now I'm at the moment finishing a film which I which took me 2 years, also a short film, but still from the initial idea, I think 2.5 years, and 2 years until now, and in 2.5 years it will be finished. And I'm also not a very patient person, and I had the very big luck that for some exhibitions which I had, I was able to make very small video works with just like 2, 3, maybe 4 people. And the quickie was also a little bit like this. It then completely escalated. but the initial idea was to make it as a very small work. And and these works, I'm also like the quickie, I'm editing them, I'm doing sound, and there I get this playfulness, and there I can also try out these crazy ideas and see if they works, because I can take risk. Because if it goes completely wrong, it's not 30,000 euros which is lost, but it's 2,000, 5,000 euros, which is still not. I mean, it never happens. Always something comes out, but still you can take more this risk. But it's interesting because I watched recently this documentary Room 999, which is a reference to Wim Wenders' Room 666, where he put the camera into a room in Cannes, a hotel room, and then directors just talked about it. And in Room 999, I forgot her name, but also a great director, she did it. And then directors who are all invited to Cannes, they talk about their experience and if the media of film is dead and so. And it's exactly very similar to here. Like they're like, yeah, I really miss this playfulness, and I really miss to now I have to really, because then they are doing films with 4 countries or whatever, and then you have to wait for 1 year for the co-production from Denmark to go and whatever, and yes, I can completely see. So I really think, I mean, we already said it often enough, and still I also think that the quickie is not something that you do within a day, but it also took a lot of time. But still, there you can really have your crazy ideas, and you can take the risk, and you can
You're allowed to fail.
Yes,
right. There's no
I
real.
think this is a big difference. You're allowed to fail.
The stakes are really low. So if you mess up, it's okay. You do the next one some other day.
And there's less people talking. You know, if you do a feature film, for example, you have so many people who have their input, who want to change the script, who want to change the editing. And here, it's just up to you. You just do whatever you feel like doing, which is also a very new situation for me, for example. Because even at film school, there were so many people, you know, telling you to do this and this differently. So this is also an enormous freedom that you don't have out there in the film world.
Would you say that you learned something making these 2 quickies that you can now adapt next time you shoot your second feature? I mean, it's so important not to lose this childish excitement, right? To not be bogged down by the entire machinery that's overwhelming and frustrating. And it's, is there a way, that's the actual question, is there a way to preserve this like playfulness, even if you have 5 million euros attached to the thing and 600 people working on it?
I think the one thing that you can learn, what I'm learning, is to trust in myself. So at the beginning, I was always very insecure, and so I listened to everything people told me. And if you do these quickies, you learn to trust your instincts. And yes, okay, they're not the best movies in the world, but still, I think they're funny, the 2 that I did. Yeah, I discovered that maybe I can do comedy, for example. And I didn't do comedy at film school because this wasn't seen as something that you shouldn't try to achieve. It wasn't seen as, you know, it's not an art house film that's going to play in Cannes. So this is something I discovered. And also maybe to surround yourself with good people, people who trust you and that you trust, so that they won't tell you to make everything differently. People who trust your instincts also. And to work with those people, I think, is very important, so that you don't lose the trust in yourself.
So yeah, I hope it was useful insight, because I feel really, I'm not kidding when I'm saying this, I feel so inspired by this. And again, thank you so much, Govinda, for you and Adi to come up with this project, and thank you, COVID, for creating the right setting to... Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, it's maybe 2 questions, but like, what can we like change? Because the whole concept of the quickies has changed from the first season to the second season, and we probably do a 3rd season. I mean, it's in the works. Like, how can we improve it? And like, do you have any suggestions? Do you need more money, less money? And the second question, and maybe that kind of adds on to this, is like, would you be able to, would anyone be interested in like even doing like a quickies feature idea?
How could
is that even a feasible idea? Is that crazy? Or is that like the next logical step to think like, why not make a feature in the same sense? And I'm not saying make a feature for nothing, because obviously it's a lot more time, but just kind of like totally differently approach a feature.
Go ahead, Roxanne. You seem so eager.
No. I think like 5,000 was like the perfect amount. Maybe 2,000. I wasn't there for this first season, but 5 was. I mean, I also wrote it in that sense, the whole concept to not need more. So I think for the budget, I think it's quite fair. And I guess like for the rest, it's nice. We have a nice premiere in a beautiful cinema. The organization went well. I mean, like, communication went well. I don't have anything more to, like, it went well.
Yeah, we try to be very strict with the deadlines, by the way. Like I said, we want to do it we had the films in December, and we thought let's get it finished by January. Let's have all our films shot, like, maybe in February, and then get it. I think we aimed for May. In the end, I'm sorry to point it out, Roxane was the last one to hand in her film.
Oh,
the reason we're sitting here today and not in July.
We weren't early.
Yeah, I mean, in the first season, I was one of the last ones, like Adi and me. It's really, really hard to push yourself, even if you have a deadline. So yeah, can we be stricter? Should we be stricter? I don't know. Like, or is that as good as we can do it?
For me, it was really, I sent it in December, and then I had a feature for 3 months. So I was blocked. It was not laziness. It was really, and then trying to find the crew and to get it together. I'm really happy you gave me a bigger deadline. Yeah.
I think deadlines are good, but it's just not always possible.
But like, if not, I would have said then give it to somebody else and give the chance to someone else. If I would see that it would not be doable for you guys to not have the movie at that date. And for your second question with the feature, I think I'm one of those who think it would be great to do also a feature with less money. We discussed it a lot already with Lars and other filmmakers, and to just have a different approach. You won't do a La Fazale, for example, with less money. I don't know how much we're talking about, 300K, 500K, but just to know what you shoot with less characters, less days, less crew members, but to have an equally good feature in quality too. And I think it's doable. You just have to have another point of view on how you write it and how you shoot it.
Yeah, I would say the deadline thing is a thing. I think it's very good to be strict. I personally, for me, I wish I had more time to just correct some things in the film that I'm not happy with because we didn't have enough time. But it was just because I was working on 2 other projects, 2 feature films at the same time, and it was just too much. And I think probably just shouldn't have applied. But I was like, yay, this first idea. So yes, a little bit more time would have been nice. And on the other hand, I totally think that the deadline is the thing that makes us do these films. So I don't know what I should say to that. But yeah, and on the feature film thing, it's the same as Roxane. I think it's a very good idea. We would really have to think, about what the rules are, how we can make it work, because people would probably earn a little bit less than on other feature films. I don't know. But I think that people are willing to do it. There's a big fear of, but people would never help me if they get less money. And I'm not sure that's true. I think that if we write stories, exactly as you said, for this kind of money, it is doable, and we would just have more films and more great films, and we don't produce that many Luxembourgish films. And I think if we had this, and it's also the same as, you could always ask for less money at the film fund, but if you had certain rules, like maybe a deadline, or maybe, I don't know, some positive thing that we could get out of it, I think so many people would like to do it. And it would just be great for the Luxembourgish film industries to have more stories told.
To make more diversity in the filmmaking landscape and have different kind of films that maybe don't look that clean and super produced. And yes, I know it's a big problem because life is so expensive in Luxembourg, and people that work on film need to be paid to pay their rent and live their families. I think it's very different in the point of view of a director and in the point of view of the technician.
One thing, the question is not about how do we pay people less to make it work, it's just how do we film in a different way to pay people, to pay them ideally the same amount, but just like I say, you can shoot on this camera, you don't need to have a film camera or even an Arri camera. You can just save on so many elements, and it's never the question of paying people less. That shouldn't be the thing. You can. I mean, there's also a thing that you can make a film with your friends, and they are very happy to maybe have a chance to do something that they don't get to do otherwise. So you ask actors who are not professional actors, but they're non-professionals, or they're your friends, and that can be amazing. That's how you discover new talents also. you would never use these people necessarily if you didn't have to use them because you don't have enough money. So there's also this dynamic, but we should really be careful not to stress this point that, yeah, then we have to pay people less and stuff. That it doesn't have to be that way.
Right, there's a film in the cinema that was made without the film fund and with a lot of friends and stuff, and it's, if we had more of this, it would be amazing.
Yes, you mean the film from Lucas? Yes, I was also thinking about it that, of course, there are some films which need these budgets, and then there are some films like Approaches, where I can imagine, I mean, they did it, and Lucas and the whole crew and production crew, and also Louis Gras and all of them, they did it, and they did it with also I don't know if Kickstarter campaigns, but some things like this, apart from this and so on. And I can imagine if there is something from Film Reactor, for example, where there's already a budget and there's a certain ICADA as
infrastructure.
Yeah, there's an infrastructure in some way, then a lot of it could be easier. And yes, I think it's actually a great idea.
The film we were talking about is London Sheared, right? Land in the Shadows by Lucas Grevys. All right, I think we should wrap it up. Thank you guys for this inspiring discussion. And you should be looking forward to these films. It's really good. There's so many colors in there. It's very interesting to see what people come up with if they just get the money and the freedom to do whatever they want. And you see the different sensibilities each and every one of these storytellers has. It's very exciting. So thank you guys, and see you at 6 for the screening.